we're starting a batch of kombucha. Very exciting. I usually leave it for a few weeks to ferment, so I want to get it going so I can get another batch of kombucha out as fast as possible, because I love it. So there's a couple, you can use any vessel to make your tea. One of the easy ways is to use a French press. So we'll do one in that and we'll do one in a bowl, just easy. You're gonna want some plain sugar, just regular old sugar, and you're gonna want a tea. I use this Positively Tea Company tea. I don't know that I use this or anything, but it's very good, it's organic, and then, it comes in a big bulk size, which is what I use just for kombucha. So I'm gonna take roughly 3 tablespoons of that and put it in my French press. And then I'm gonna do about 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So you're making a sweet tea, fermented sweet tea. There's that. And I've boiled some water already, so I'll pop that in there. Stir it up. I'm actually going to leave that uncovered so it cools faster, but you're going to let it steep for 10 to 15 minutes. So set that aside. I'll make another batch just in a bowl. You can use anything, really. So same thing, I'm going to do 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Roughly. And it may sound like a lot of sugar, but this is not sugar that you are going to be consuming. This is sugar that the SCOBY is going to be consuming. This is what helps ferment your tea. So don't worry about it being a sugary drink, because by the time you drink it, it is not. And since this doesn't have a straining method, I actually bought these bulk tea bags. You can use a tea strainer. I just don't want a lot of tea particles in there, but you can always strain it out. You could even just dump the tea in the bag or in the bowl and go and just strain it. I like to make it as easy as possible on myself. So again, about 3 tablespoons in this bag. And in this bowl, I'm going to put about 4 cups of water. Look at my Pyrex here. Beautiful. Okay, my sugar's in the bowl. I'll get this in here. And before I get my tea bag in there floating around, I'm just going to dissolve the sugar. Okay, and then pop that in there. Make sure it's wet. And again, leave it for 10 to 15 minutes. Meanwhile, I'll prep my kombucha containers. So I use these 1 gallon ball jars. I find it's the easiest. I like good size batches of kombucha. So I actually make 2 gallon sizes at a time, and it makes about 14 serving size bottles, maybe a little more than serving size depending on how much you drink, but we drink 1 in a serving. So this makes a good, 14 bottles, and then I can keep rotating and generally always have some kombucha on hand. So what it's going to be is it's going to be your sweet tea that you're brewing, and then water, quite a bit of water, and then you will have some already made kombucha. So this is your kombucha starter tea is what it's called. This is from a previous batch of kombucha from this stage, not from the second stage, but from the first stage. And this will help your fermentation start quicker and help you help the SCOBY that you're going to use. And then you're going to put a SCOBY in there, which are these funny looking things, and you'll see what that looks like when I get it in there. All right, so let's get just some filtered water. For these, I'm probably going to put about 8 cups of water, plus the 4 cups that I have making tea. May need a little extra. I'll get my starter tea in there and the SCOBY. Okay, I've got about 8 cups of water in my containers. So you'll see this is all it takes to make kombucha. You have water, you have 3 tablespoons of tea per this, and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And then you have a SCOBY, which if you're just starting out, you can find reputable SCOBYs online to purchase, which usually comes with a little bit of your starter tea, so you can get going that way. And each time you make a batch of kombucha, it reproduces SCOBYs. So you put 1 in, and by the time it's fermented, you have 2. So soon you could be inundated in SCOBYs. So the barrier to entry is pretty low. You get a SCOBY, and you have some tea, and you have some sugar, and you have water. Very, very simple. And then you have 7 bottles of kombucha per this. So much, much cheaper than buying it at the store. Also, at the store, I feel like there may be added sugar beyond this process. So like I said, the process of brewing and fermenting kombucha, it's not a sugary process. You did put sugar in your tea, but that tea is to feed your SCOBY. So it feeds those probiotics to make your tea ferment. It's not a sugary drink by the time you drink it, even though you do put a second fermentation if you want to flavor and make it fizzy. It's still not a sugary drink. So some of the drinks that you buy at the store, I believe, have some added sugar. So they are quite sweet. And another thing you can do with these, I usually leave these to ferment for 2 weeks or more. It's often a month, actually. Sometimes it's really just how long it takes me to get back to making another batch and how quickly we go through the batch that we've made already. So the longer you ferment it, between 2 and 4 weeks, the more sugar that the SCOBY will eat. So I do like to push it a little longer because I try to avoid, sugary drinks. But even after 2 weeks, there shouldn't be much sugar left in your kombucha. Okay, so you have your water in here. We'll just put very cold water in here, and by putting warm tea, it should balance out to actually a perfect temperature. You want it under 100 degrees roughly before you put your SCOBY or your starter tea in here. You don't want to burn your SCOBY, and you don't want to freeze your SCOBY. So those are some considerations. I'll note the exact range of temperature you would want prior to putting your SCOBY in here. So I'll note that in the notes here. Okay, we've let our tea steep for 15 minutes. Should be fine, it's still pretty warm. So I'm gonna just plunge this, get all the tea down to the bottom so it doesn't end up in our kombucha. And then this is probably a little bit more concentrated than the bowl of tea that I just made. So I'm actually gonna split this up between my 2 jars. You don't have to. If you make one, you can easily put this in one jar and then just make sure you have enough water in there. But I'm gonna just split it up to even out my degree of dark tea. You'll notice there's not huge precision here. It's not actually needed. I think a lot of people are fearful of making the wrong choice when making something like this. It's pretty hard to make the wrong choice. You need sugar, tea, water, and temperature constraints. I can still easily make a big mess with these Pyrex dishes because their spout is so tiny that it's easy to spill everything all over the place. So I use patience, pour it very slowly through its tiny itty bitty spout. Otherwise, I love these. Wish their spout was a little bit bigger. So again, I'm splitting this between the two, so that would be about 2 cups each. All right. So at this point, I can probably just pour it in and hope for the best. More aggressive pour. Okay, there we go. Again, I'm trying not to get this all over the place because it is sugary, and ants or not, I don't want to be sticking to everything. Okay, so both jars are about 2 inches from the top. That's pretty good. You can always add just a little bit more water if you want, which I think I might do. Temperature wise, they're pretty good. I actually have this little temperature gauge on here, which you can't see what it says, but it actually says that it's 76. So that is great. So the combination of hot tea and cold water really balances the temperature quickly, so you don't have to wait to put anything else in. So I think what I'll do is I'll put my starter tea in there. Again, splitting this up between the two. Roughly a cup per jar. That's great. Okay, and then I'm going to add my SCOBY. So I've got quite a few from my previous batch here. So you just need 1 in each, and again, you want to make sure your hands are very clean. You don't want to add any other bacteria to this. So you just dump, these SCOBYs, which you can, if you don't have any, you might know someone who has them, and if you do know someone who makes kombucha, they probably have quite a few and could give you one. So check that source, otherwise you can find them online. So I'm just going to add one there. And I'm going to add one to this guy over here. Again, these are also sticky. Poof. So I just cover these with clean, light dish towels. These look dirty, they are actually clean. Just cover them over. You want some airflow to be able to go in, but you don't want any bugs or dust getting in there, so this allows enough air. And then I just put a rubber band around it. You could also use a coffee filter. I've seen people using paper towels. Anything will work as long as it's covered and nothing can get in there, dust or bugs. Do the same on this one. And then I'm just going to label with a Sharpie or tape the date that I did this. Some people post date it to when they want to actually do their second fermentation. I am not that organized, so I do my second fermentation when I can. So I just put the date that I actually did this step, and then I'll know, how many weeks out it's been, basically. So I'll do that, and then I'm going to put these away in a darker spot in the kitchen. I have a spot kind of over in that corner that doesn't get a lot of light, and you're not going to be moving them. You don't want to move them around a lot. So I'll leave them for a couple weeks or so, and you should be good to go. You can also, taste them as time goes on. Between 2 and 4-ish weeks, it's going to get more buchy, you might say, or closer to a vinegary, tangy taste. And use your preference. It won't go bad, but you might go to a point that you don't like it anymore. So you can take a straw or something, just dip it in there. Don't, drink out of this, but dip it in there and just take a little taste and see if you like the tangy, bluchiness of it. And if you want more, leave it for a few more days. If it's good, make your second fermentation. So enjoy some good gut health with this kombucha. Good probiotics. Okay, bye.